Hi, and welcome back. In 1991, 5.5-year-old Veronica Harrington, KC62QR of Long Beach, California, was granted her FCC technician license. On March 26, 1992, she appeared on The Letterman Show and was touted as being the youngest licensee on record. To my knowledge, her record is still intact. The oldest known U.S. amateur was Cliff Cahart, W4KKP. He was 109 years old when he became a silent key. You may sometimes hear the phrase silent key when you get your license and get on the air. It is a term of respect for a deceased amateur radio operator. As an amateur radio operator, I want to point out to you that you will be talking to enthusiasts of all ages, backgrounds, and interests. Are you ready to learn? Well, let's get started. This video is Lesson 2, Part 2 of my Amateur Radio Technician class license course covering the 2022 to 2026 question pool. I'm your instructor, Gary Stevens, and my call sign is Kilo Echo 2 Golf Sierra. I hold an amateur extra license, and I've been an amateur operator since 2001. I've been an amateur extra since 2014, and I've been teaching for over 15 years now. The sub-element T2 section covers operating procedures. On the exam, 3 questions will be randomly selected from the sub-element T2. This sub-element has 3 groups and a total of 36 questions. This video covers T2B, VHF, UHF operating practices, FM repeaters, Simplex, reverse splits, access tones, CTCSS, DTMF, DMR operation, resolving operational problems, and Q signals. Before we dive into our questions, let's talk a little bit more about repeaters. This block diagram shows that a repeater uses the same antenna for receiving and transmitting. When a signal is received, it passes through a device called a duplexer. It is a device that allows a dual band radio to use a single dual band antenna. The signal goes from the duplexer to the receiver, where it is demodulated. Next, the voice information is passed on to the transmitter. Next, it is modulated and fed back into the duplexer and fed into the antenna. Finally, it is radiated to other stations on the same frequency, plus or minus the offset. Remember offsets from the previous lesson? The key points are that offsets are standard on repeaters. They can be plus or minus, and different bands have different standards for offsets. We need to understand that the most common use of the reverse function of a VHF UHF transceiver is to listen on the repeater's input frequency. The reverse function can be valuable in determining if another station is properly keying the repeater. It is also useful when troubleshooting continuous tone coded Squelch system issues. How is a VHF UHF transceiver's reverse function used? A, to reduce power output. B, to increase power output. C, to listen on the repeater's input frequency. D, to listen on the repeater's output frequency. Did you get this one? The correct answer is C, to listen on the repeater's input frequency. We need to know that CTCSS describes the use of a subaudible tone transmitted along with a normal voice audio to open the squelch of a receiver. CTCSS is the acronym that means Continuous Tone Coded Squelch System. It is a subaudible tone system used on some repeaters. When added to the carrier, the CTCSS tone allows the receiver to accept the signal when added to a carrier. It works like a key. The exam question is, what term describes the use of a subaudible tone transmitted along with the normal voice audio to open the squelch of receiver? A, carrier squelch, B, tone burst, C, DTMF, D, CTCSS. Of course, we know that the answer is D, CTCSS. We need to know what a linked repeater network is. A linked repeater network is a network of repeaters in which signals received by one repeater are transmitted by all the repeaters in the network. Simply put, linked repeater networks are often followed interstates or linked cities around the globe. A linked repeater is attached to the internet using special programs that talk using the Internet Radio Link Protocol and Voice over IP protocol. Then each node transmits what it receives via the internet. What the repeater receives from its antenna, it packetizes and then sends it over the nodes via the internet. The exam question is, which of the following describes a linked repeater network? A network of repeaters in which the signal received by one repeater is transmitted by all the repeaters in the network. B, a single repeater with more than one receiver. C, multiple repeaters with the same control operator. Or D, a system of repeaters linked by APRS. Did you get this one? The correct answer is A, a network of repeaters which signals received by one repeater are transmitted by all the repeaters in the network. We need to understand the following are reasons you cannot access a repeater whose output you can hear. Improper transceiver offsets. You are using the wrong CTCSS tone. You are using the wrong DCS code. Now we need to take a deeper dive into the world of repeater access tones. Tones prevent accessing multiple repeaters at once. The subaudible low frequency tone must be present before the repeater transmitter turns on. Tones have various names depending on the equipment manufacturer. CTCSS, Continuous Tone Coded Squelch System. PL, which is a Motorola trademark for the CTCSS. Privacy codes or tones. Or DCS, Digital Coded Squelch. Our question reads, which of the following could be the reason you're unable to access a repeater whose output you can hear? A, improper transceiver offset. B, you are using the wrong CTCSS tone. C, you are using the wrong DCS code. Or D, all these choices are correct. Of course, the answer is D, all of these choices are correct. It is good to know that when you are talking too loudly, it can cause your FM transmission audio to be distorted on the voice peaks. This slide illustrates that if we talk too loud, our voices will overmodulate and parts of the speech can be distorted or non-intelligible by the recipient. Our exam may have this question. What would cause your FM transmission audio to be distorted on the voice peaks? A, your repeater offset is inverted. B, you need to talk louder. C, you are talking too loudly. D, your transmit power is too high. Did you get the answer C? You were talking too loudly? If so, you're correct. We need to know that DTMF is a type of signaling that uses pairs of audio tones. DTMF stands for dual tone modulated frequency, and it sounds like this. Dual tone multi-frequency signaling is a telecommunication signaling system using a voice frequency band over telephone lines between telephone equipment and other communication devices such as amateur radios via switching centers. DTMF was first developed in Bell Labs and was first introduced in 1963. It is more commonly known by its trademark name, touchtone. DTMF tones are the dominant signaling protocol for interacting with telephone systems or automated telephone services. The exam question looks like this. What type of signaling uses pairs of audio tones? A, DTMF, B, CTCSS, C, GPRS, or D, D-star. Did you get the right one? The answer is A, DTMF. You should know that in order to join a digital repeater's talk group, you need to program your radio with the group's ID or code. DMR is the acronym for Digital Mobile Radio. Shown here is a FT5DR DMR, or Digital Mobile Radio. DMR repeaters and networks incorporate a system of talk groups. These are simply ID codes transmitted by the radio, accepted by the repeater, and retransmitted to other DMR radios on the same channel. They could potentially also be retransmitted on the internet to other link systems. Here is a list of talk groups and their talk group IDs that I found online. How can you join a digital repeaters talk group? A, register your radio with the local FCC office. B, join the repeaters owners club. C, program your radio with the group's ID or code. D, sign your call after the courtesy tone. We should answer C, program your radio with the group's ID or code. We must understand that when two stations retransmitting on the same frequency interfere with each other, the stations should negotiate continued use of the frequency. The book Getting to Yes defines negotiating as a back and forth communication designed to reach an agreement when you and the other side have some shared interest and others opposed. Since each of you have a shared interest, amateur radio, and in opposition, the use of the frequency, the situation facilitates a chance for you to perfect your negotiating skills. The exam question is this: which of the following applies when two stations transmitting on the same frequency interfere with each other? A, the stations should negotiate continued use of the frequency. B, both stations should choose another frequency to avoid conflict. C, interference is inevitable, so no action is required. D, use subaudible tones so both stations can share the frequency. The correct answer is A, the stations should negotiate continued use of the frequency. We should be familiar with why there are simplex frequencies. There are simplex channels designated in the VHF and UHF band plans so that stations within range of each other can communicate without tying up a repeater. Simplex operation is much like using the amateur transceiver as a walkie-talkie, except that they can transmit over greater distances. Do you remember what 146.52 is? It is a simplex national calling frequency. The simplex frequencies are listed in the ARRL band plan. The exam question is as follows. Why are simplex channels designated in the VHF-UHF band plans? A, so that stations within range of each other can communicate without tying up a repeater. B, for contest operation. C, for working DX only. D, so stations with simple transmitters can access the repeater without automated offset. You should have picked A, so stations within range of each other can communicate without tying up a repeater. We must know that QRM is a Q signal that indicates that you're receiving interference from another station. Q signals are three-letter symbols beginning with Q, used on CW to save time and improved communications. This slide shows a partial list of Q signals that are commonly used. However, we only need to know two of them for the exam, QRM and QSY. As you can see, the signal can be a question, an answer, or a notice. Per our text question, we are giving notice. The exam question is, which Q signal indicates that you are receiving interference from other stations? A, QRM, B, QRN, B, QTH, D, QSB. The answer is, of course, A, QRM. Know that QSY is the Q signal that indicates that you are changing frequency. Again, this slide shows how the QSY signal can be either a question, answer, or notice. Per our text question, we are giving notice. Our test question is, which Q signal indicates that you're changing frequency? A, QRU, B, QSY, C, QSL, or D, QRZ? The correct answer, as you know, is B, QSY. The purpose of the color code used in the DMR repeater systems is for access. Therefore, it must match the repeater color code for access. A color code is just a fancy name for what would be CTCSS or PL in the analog radio world. There are 15 color codes, 0 to 15. The DMR transceiver must be programmed to access the repeater with the correct color code. On your exam, you may see this question. What is the purpose of color codes on DMR repeater systems? A, must match the repeater color code for access. B, defines the frequency pair to use. C, identifies the codec used. D, defines the minimum signal level required for access. The answer you should give is A, must match the repeater color code for access. The purpose of a squelch function is to mute the receiver audio when the signal is not present. This video demonstrates the squelch function. What is the purpose of a squelch function? A, reduce the CW transmitter's key clicks. B, mute the receiver's audio when a signal is not present. C, eliminate parasitic oscillations in the RF amplifier. Or D, reduce interference from impulse noise. We know from our demonstration that the answer is B, mute receiver audio when a signal is not present. We are at the end of Lesson 2, Part 2. I hope you are enjoying this course so far. Thank you for watching. Feel free to leave feedback and constructive criticism. You're invited to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Hit the like button if you're so inclined. Again, thanks for watching. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "You cannot do kindness too soon because you never know how soon it will be too late." Until next time, my friends, never stop learning.